Hi, you're all incredibly welcome. My name is Rob Nelson, and I am the Green School's Energy Team Coordinator. And this is part of our Festival of Energy this week. We had a load of live webinars throughout the week, and today we're focusing on our secondary schools with a careers talk from EirGrid. Um, just firstly, a massive thank you to EirGrid. They've come on board as our partner this year, and with their partnership, we're able to provide things like the Festival of Energy and things like workshops that we've done throughout the year as well. So, uh, big thank you for them because without their partnership, we wouldn't be able to provide them opportunities. So, I have a little short video just about EirGrid from one of the people in the higher up in EirGrid just to kind of introduce the week.
Hello everyone, it's great to welcome you all to the Green Schools Energy Festival 2025. I'm delighted to welcome you to this exciting festival, all about energy. We are going to learn about how energy is made, how it travels to our homes and schools, and how we can use it wisely to help our planet. But first, let me tell you about EirGrid. EirGrid makes sure electricity moves safely and smoothly all around Ireland. Imagine a network of motorways connecting power stations where electricity is made to houses, schools and hospitals. EirGrid helps manage that network, making sure that the lights can stay on and that you have the power you need every day of the week. How that power is made has a big part to play in supporting Ireland's climate action efforts. We need to bring renewable energy sources, such as wind and solar, onto the electricity grid. And to do this, we need to make some big changes to make sure we have a strong grid for future generations, so that everyone can have access to clean energy. You'll hear more about this throughout the festival. The Green Schools team has lots of fun activities in store and great things to discover, and so ask lots of questions, get involved, and most of all, enjoy the day.
Brilliant. And as I said, it's great to have EirGrid on board. We had a lot of talks during the week. We had talks from EirGrid all about what they do. We had a brief history of energy that I spoke about on Tuesday. We had a talk from Dawn Keegan from Capital Power talking about solar power, and Marcus Byrne earlier on today talking about Wind Energy Ireland. And I also recorded a little bit of VT on both of those, just about their careers. So when we go live with this recording next week, we'll add in a little video from each of those talking about their career paths, and that could be a little bit of added interest as well. Tomorrow, we also have a speaker from Green Schools, our Irish language officer, who's going to talk about energy and do that through Irish. So that'd be a really interesting talk. Just to note as well that during the week we've put out create videos, create with Rob, an energy pledge, a static jump experiment, an elastic powered car, a pop today, propeller going out, and an Irish version of the energy pledge. And they're aimed at both the senior primary and junior post primary levels. So they could be definitely something that you do in the secondary schools. We also have a post primary standby workshop or worksheet. And a light worksheet that is suitable for post-primary as well. So there's resources there that you're able to download from our website, and there'll be resources that you can use as you work on energy. But that's it from me. I'm going to escape out of this. I'm going to stop sharing, and we'll hand over to. Have I stopped sharing?
Yeah, you have.
I'm
Hand
going
over
to
to
hand
you
over to
then.
Suzanne, who's going to
Wonderful.
take over and talk all about EirGrid. Suzanne is part of the strategy and sustainability team, and she's also on the graduate program. So she has lots of interesting stuff to tell us. As I said, the chat's there. If you want to pop in any questions you have at the chat, we'll get to a Q&A at the end. But over to Suzanne. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Robert, for introducing me. And before I start, I'd just like to say I'm delighted to be here to support the Green Schools of the Energy Festival. So I'm delighted to be on the call giving you some information about my background today. And before I go any further, I'll just say I'm assuming you can see my slides. As you can give me a nod. Perfect. Amazing. So look, today I'm going to take you through my background as a woman who's working in kind of a STEM orientated company. and as well as what EirGrid does briefly, and also what a career can look like in the energy sector, obviously more so from my perspective. But if you wait to the end, we'll take any questions and we can maybe get a lovely discussion going around some of the pieces you see here. So first of all, just to give you some context on my background. So back when I was in school, and maybe I was more for your age, I studied French, business, music, and accounting, and for my leaving cert. After completing my years in secondary school, I studied in Dublin City University in DCU, where I gained a degree in business studies, specialising in operations. Then in 2023, I joined the graduate programme in EirGrid Group, which I'll get to a bit back to that later on. But I guess you'll notice I come from a non-technical background. I didn't study any of the STEM subjects, but you might not expect that from a company like EirGrid, where we're literally building infrastructure for the electricity grid. But I find EirGrid to be a company really of interest for me because of the big role we have to play in terms of decarbonising our electricity sector and moving the grid from using more fossil fuel-based power over to renewable energies. So I have a really strong interest in sustainability systems. I was a big climate activist, kind of am now, especially was when I was younger, and I'm carrying that through my years. But I'm really interested to see and to be involved in moving systems from where they kind of are now to becoming cleaner and better for our environment and society, both now and into the future. So as part of that, I, back in September last year, started my Master's in Sustainability and Enterprise in UCC, which I'm working on part-time, and as well as my time working in EirGrid on the graduate programme. But you know, EirGrid has really benefited me in terms of giving me that opportunity to see how these systems work and being involved in some of the really big tasks we have, both as a company, but also, you know, as Ireland has to decarbonise. So I guess I've given a bit of an overview of some key things EirGrid's doing, but who is EirGrid? Well, we're the transmission system operator, or the TSO, which means we're the operator and developer of Ireland's electricity grid. Essentially, we transport power from where it's generated over to where it's needed. So oftentimes you're large energy users, and also we're working very closely with ESB networks to ensure there's enough power on the electricity grid to fuel your homes and your schools, the businesses in your area. We're essentially ensuring that there is a reliable source of power for everyone around the island of Ireland. And that's really one of our main goals, is to ensure security of supply and still uphold that even while moving in over to more renewable based sources of power. So that's just a little tidbit about what EirGrid does, but I think you might have heard from us earlier in the week. If you have any more questions, let me know. But I'm going to give you a bit of information now around some of the early stage career programs we have in EirGrid, such as the EirGrid graduate program. So I mentioned I joined this program back in 2023, and there's a lovely picture there in the top right of my cohort. I think that was our first induction week, and we look very scrubbed and shiny and ready to go. And I hope we still look the same now. I don't know, but so we joined back in 2023, and currently in EirGrid we have about 56 graduates across the two cohorts. So graduates are taken in each and every year. And look, like the graduates, we come from so many different areas. While you would expect there's a lot of people who come from engineering backgrounds, we have engineering, IT, but we also have a lot of people like myself who come from non-STEM backgrounds, such as economics and business. There's also a general stream on the graduate programme. So EirGrid has a huge mission at hand, and that means we need as many people as possible coming from a really broad range of skill sets to support the company to achieve its goals. And EirGrid has been really significantly growing over the past few years. So I know around the company you meet people who come from the most amazing backgrounds that you wouldn't necessarily expect, and it's not always kind of your just traditional career path. But the graduate program itself, it's a 2-year program and it's split across 3 different rotations. And that's a really great opportunity for us as young professionals, because we're not just getting to build up our knowledge of what the company is and what they do, we also get the practical experience working across different offices and getting the opportunity to work on different areas of the business and actually have that practical experience to bring back, so that at the end of the program we have really good knowledge of who EirGrid is and what they do, but also breaking it down as to what kind of different teams are doing across the business as well. And I will say that our graduates, I checked this recently actually, I got up a big spreadsheet of all the different teams in EirGrid and we were mapping out which graduates are in which team, and nearly every single one of them had at least one graduate. And so you really get the opportunity to work across so many different teams, and also you have a lovely inbuilt network of friends and also colleagues who you can go to learn more about what EirGrid's doing. So it's a great program, and I've really enjoyed being on it. So a little bit about the rotations I've worked on while I'm in EirGrid. So I'm currently in my 3rd rotation, and I'm going to be finishing up in September. But here you'll see the teams I've worked in and had the opportunity to work with over the past 2 years. So I'm going to give you a little taster into some of the work I've completed. And that all starts when I joined back in September 2023, when I joined the GRC team, or Governance, Risk and Compliance. You might be wondering, what on earth is this? But essentially, they monitor and manage EirGrid's corporate governance, risk environment. It's very much around corporate governance and ensuring that EirGrid is compliant with organizational standards, both internationally and nationally. So the GRC is really there to ensure that EirGrid as a company is operating effectively and to the highest standards of corporate governance. And this is through ensuring we are compliant with organizational laws, both, as I mentioned, internationally and nationally, ensuring they're implemented into our systems and reports, but also ensuring that we inform and build awareness amongst our employees as to those corporate governance standards through training and awareness. So there's a lot of engagement internally to ensure people are aware of what they should be doing, and us kind of following up with them to make sure it's there. So it was a very interesting role to be in initially, because it gave me a good kind of high level overview of the organization. And you're kind of sitting in with people just across the organization, getting a tidbit of information here and there of what they're doing. So then for my 2nd rotation, I moved over to PMO, specifically based in the Chief Infrastructure Office. And they essentially, in CIO, manage the operation, development, and also the management of EirGrid's infrastructure. And this was a really great opportunity for me, as someone coming from a non-technical background, to get to work very closely with project engineers on what they're actually doing on the day-to-day to manage their projects. Now, the PMO is kind of sitting more on the reporting side. They specifically manage our regulatory, risk, audit, governance requirements for each of the projects of our EirGrid infrastructure projects. But it was a very dynamic environment. And like I mentioned, it was a great opportunity to get key insights into how the infrastructure is actually managed and the requirements of our key stakeholders, in terms of, from our regulator crew, from the information that DEC would need on how we're actually developing the infrastructure and what our plans are, and also a close-up perspective of our relationships with ESB. As you can imagine, it's a very close relationship, because we are kind of transferring electricity over to them from when we've generated it for them to distribute on the distribution system. So it was really interesting to get that close-up perspective of where EirGrid sits and where and at what point our infrastructure projects actually developed and handed over, and how that process works in terms of actually energizing projects and getting the infrastructure ready for it to actually be usable and to transfer electricity onto the electricity grid. So So it's a great opportunity, and it kind of gave me more insight into, I guess, what I would see as the engineering side of the business, working on the day-to-day management of infrastructure projects. And the PMO is really vital. They play a vital role for the CIO to ensure there's the highest standards across our short, medium, and our long-term development of planning and maintaining EirGrid's infrastructure. So for my final rotation that I'm currently in, I'm in strategy and sustainability. I specifically kind of more so work on the sustainability side, but it's a really interesting team to be working in because they're essentially helping EirGrid to achieve its key strategic and sustainability focused objectives and goals. And that's across business planning in terms of developing and kind of maintaining the objectives of the strategy for EirGrid as a whole. And I'll actually draw your attention just to the little pyramid at the side of the screen here. So this is the part of EirGrid's strategy. We actually aligned 10 of the sustainable development goals. Now, some of you in school might have heard of these, but they're UN has set out 17 sustainable development goals. And it's great that as a company, EirGrid has actually aligned itself to 10 of them, with our key goal being aligned to SDG 13 on climate action in terms of leading the island's electricity sector on sustainability and decarbonisation. So that's really key in the strategy team to ensure that EirGrid is continuously aligning and actually achieving these goals that we've set out for ourselves. We also do work around business reporting. There's lots of plans and kind of different sustainable procurement practices and making sure we're keeping up to our reporting that both the government nationally will expect us to do and also internationally as a company, and especially as a semi-state that's delivering key infrastructure for Ireland. And now a big part of my job is kind of working on the third pillar in terms of working responsibly. So EirGrid is very much committed to building a sustainable society, and we do this by working with different social partnerships. So this would be one of them that we would work alongside and helping you have the energy festival. And it's really key in terms of making sure we're not just going out and randomly putting up wind turbines, that you're aware of what we're doing, you're aware of the mission, and it's about bringing people in and getting them involved in this really key goals, because it's not just for us, it's also for all of Ireland. So it's really important to make sure that we engage and liaise with our local communities, as well as kind of build up our own staff internally to feel, proud of the work we're doing. So there's about 6 and growing, frankly, there's constantly more popping up across the organisation of employee-led sustainability initiatives that we run in EirGrid. And I'm going to take you through some of these now, just to give you a bit of a taster. But this is some of the more fun work we do in EirGrid that we always get very excited to see when these come around. But I'd say these could also be nice ideas that you can bring back to your own schools and implement as nice activities, especially as the weather is warmer. And we've run events like beach cleanups, especially in Poolbeg Beach is really close by. You know it by the 2 towers that are there. And we've done beach cleanups out there. And I think, looking at this, we collected over 250 cigarette butts, 300 plastic bottle lids, and 150 plastic bottles. You pick up a ridiculous amount of tiny little bits of plastic along the beach. But it's wonderful for us to actually get to go out into communities and actually out on the ground where there might be infrastructure projects ongoing, where we can contribute back into our local communities as well. Inside the organisation, we ran a clothes swap. That's essentially where all of the staff, we brought in one piece of clothing, and then at the event, it's all there and people could pick out something they'd like to bring home. So it's a lovely way of swapping over what you have and making sure that people go home with something nice at the end of the day. And then one final thing we run in EirGrid is a Cuppa for Climate. And it's essentially where we meet once a month just to discuss current climate news. We try focus on the positives, but it's a lovely way to get people together, to get a bit of a discussion going. And yesterday we actually had our March session. So we had in some of our ecologists in EirGrid, and they were speaking about about some of the restorative projects that they're running in EirGrid around some of our key infrastructure sites. And it's a really lovely way just to kind of have a lunch and learn with our colleagues from across the organisation, and people kind of catch up and just share information. So it's not all about work, 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 and it's not all just focused on drawing up these map lines of, where do we put the next wind turbine or wind farm. It's also about how do we actually engage with local communities, how do we engage with our staff, and how do we kind of build ourselves up to actually achieve these huge goals that we have. So look, I hope you've enjoyed. I'll pass it back to you. If you have any questions, please let me know. But look, I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, so you just heard from Suzanne all about careers in energy with EirGrid. But earlier on in the week, we had a speaker from Capital Power, Dawn Keegan. So here's a little bit about her work.
Hi, my name is Dawn Keegan, and I am the Environmental and Sustainability Specialist with Power Capital. My role involves wearing many different hats, so I work across ESG, planning, environment, community projects, delivery, and operations. So it involves being involved in the entire project lifecycle, right from planning through to the very end. I studied environmental science in UCD, and I also have a postgraduate degree from Trinity College Dublin in climate entrepreneurship. I previously have worked in the utility sector, focusing mainly on water and gas. I've worked in construction, residential building, as environmental compliance officer there. And I also worked in a bit of regulatory affairs through the EU. So my career path has been very varied on the way to renewables, but always within the environmental space.
Also, earlier on in the week, we had a speaker from Wind Energy Ireland, Marcus Byrne, and here's a little bit about his work. So hi, Marcus, you're very welcome. So this is just a little career section that we do with our speakers. So I'll just get you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Marcus Byrne. I am Policy Manager for Wind Energy Ireland, and I lead on all things grid and markets for Wind Energy Ireland.
Brilliant. So Wind Energy Ireland, you might tell us a little bit about what they do.
So Wind Energy Ireland is one of Ireland's largest associations in the energy space. What we do is we represent industry in pushing for more renewables, and in particular in pushing for the right policy for wind. So we represent about 200 companies and everything from developers to legal firms to consultants. And they're all our members, and we work with them on some of the core issues that are affecting the wind industry today.
Brilliant. And we will have a recording of you presenting on all of this later so people can watch that back. So it's good to have that there as a resource as well. So how did you end up in working in that industry? And what did you study to get there?
So I guess to begin with, I was in school and was pretty good at maths and science and had a real passion for cars. So I knew from a very young age that I wanted to work with cars. So I decided I'd work towards getting into engineering in college. So I went through and did a degree in mechanical engineering and then went on to do a master's as well. But as part of my master's, I had to do a work experience. And that worked out that I did a work experience with a wind energy developer called Mainstream. So I spent 8 months working with them. I found a real interest in it, and as an engineer, found the big turbines very interesting and intriguing. And that led me to return after my master's to work with Mainstream for a couple of years. After that, I actually went into technology innovation, so a bit of a spin-off company. I worked with a lot of grid technologies, innovative grid technologies for a few years. And that's where I found out actually engineering wasn't really the area I wanted to be in. It was actually in the policy space and working on what's happening in the market, working on how we can improve the market and improve the energy system. And really what's driving me is working towards decarbonising Ireland's energy system.
So I hope that these career paths and these testimonies from some of the people working in energy in Ireland have allowed you to learn a little bit more about the jobs that are out there, and maybe that's a pathway for you going forward. As a secondary school student, you'll be thinking about going into either work or into further education and learning from the different people that work in the energy industry might lead to you wanting to take that particular career path. So thanks again for joining us for our Festival of Energy, and I hope you learned something about the possible careers in energy going forward for you.